live with the guys from Martin Guitars and specifically Martin Custom Shop. I'm coming from our Martin showroom, which you can always check out our inventory right at empiremusic.com. If you've checked out the Ask the Expert series, they've been really cool because they give us a behind the scenes look at the brands that we deal with. And we learn so much that, we don't get to know on our own, so this gives us the ability to really talk to the people that make it happen. And Martin is really working on some big stuff, specifically with the custom shop. And we're really excited about that because if you think of Martin guitars, you think of probably the most famous acoustic guitar that you can imagine, right? It's the sound of the most famous records in the world. And it's an honor to have these guys here. So let's go really quickly before I do introductions. Big anniversary. It's Danny Brown's 33rd anniversary today at Martin Guitars. So big round of applause there.
You.
I think that's the golden brace. I think you get the golden brace or the golden pick as your gift right now.
I don't know, but we'll keep it in mind.
Golden.
So I'm going to go down the line. Danny Brown is in the custom shop, and he is in sales and design. Brendan Hackett is my district sales manager. So if you come to an event at Empire, you're going to deal with typically Brendan and I. And then Scott Sasser is here, and he's the director of the custom shop. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank
Great to be
you.
here. So thanks for having us, man.
I'm really excited because there's a bunch of topics. We were lucky enough to get together this afternoon, and it's like try to keep this to an hour, which is tricky because we want to obviously get into as much as humanly possible, and we're going to do it. So the great thing about Martin Guitars is they really take their historic builds and they offer them in a standard production line, which is amazing. And they really range from, obviously the travel guitars, a $500 price point in full-size guitars up to whatever you can imagine in the custom shop. And we want to feature the custom shop tonight because Martin has a new program that is called the Custom Shop Expert Program, which we've been selected to participate in. And there's 25 North American dealers. And dealers like ourselves here at Empire that are an expert dealer will be able to give you unparalleled access to the guys at the custom shop. Give you an amazing experience. We've been selected because we have the inventory and we have the know-how to make sure we can help you find the perfect Martin custom guitar. So, topic that I want to start off with is let's talk about kind of the origin of the custom shop, and you guys can take it as you see fit. Go ahead and tell me about where the custom shop came from and kind of like how it manifested into what it is today.
Sure. DB, if you don't mind me starting, I know you're a long-time employee, but it goes back longer than all of us combined. There were a couple of important guitars that were built over our history, and one was in 1929 when Perry Bechtel asked to essentially put a banjo neck onto a triple O shaped body. That became our OM. So that was done by request, so custom, if you will. We did a custom request for the most famous singing cowboy the world had ever seen, and that was the Gene Autry, and that was around 1932, 33. But I really get a kick out of showing guests, when we could, the museum. We start with that first guitar that Christian Frederick brought over from the old world. And after that, every guitar that we built was done by request. His sales network were instructors and professional musicians. And when they had a student, if they had a particular need in mind, they would request something kind of like you did on the one before, but could you do this for me? So in a way, custom really has roots all the way back to the very first days on the ground in New York. Officially, around 1979 is when there was a title custom shop given to it. But the process of custom and responding to customers with special requests and unique features goes all the way back to day one. It's in our DNA.
Yeah, it's amazing because a brand like Martin, being so intrinsic to the history of modern music that we listen to, you've been dealing with the artists that make that music from the beginning. And really, if you think about how obviously guitar buying has evolved, in the 1930s, I'm sure it was more of a niche brand. It's just like less people play guitar, more people than ever are making music. And the roots of it, though, were finding out what artists wanted. And the most popular features and tones, and that shaped the sounds of the records we know. And now it's like we all get to play guitars that were inspired by that, which is really, really amazing. I think a big part of, what's really cool, just for those that don't know, Empire Music is like a 4 or 5 hour drive from the Martin Guitar Factory. Both are in Pennsylvania. My wife actually lives right by, or my wife's family's from right outside of about a half an hour from the factory. So we're able to go to the factory often, which is really cool, which we're gonna talk about all that. But, if you think about, a small town in Pennsylvania and that impact that all those interactions with all of those artists led to this massive thing that you have today in Martin. And the custom shop now really is there for players of all levels, whether you're going to be a beginner that wants their, perfect guitar that they want to start that way, or you're a touring artist or anywhere in between. You can really work with Danny, probably has done. I mean, Danny and I worked on tons of guitars together, and you can really design what you want. So is there anything that anyone wants to add regarding kind of historically what the custom shop is?
A little bit historically, but Joe, you brought up a good point there about the custom shop being for everybody. And sometimes there's a misconception that custom shop is, D200 level, or all the guitars are really expensive. They are a little bit more. There's a premium for getting into custom shop, but it's important to note that custom shop can be very, very simple, and it can be very accessible. Yeah. So don't, if you're on here and you're listening, don't shy away from thinking about a custom because you think they're all $10,000-$20,000.
The word custom doesn't exclude customers. The word custom to me can be as elemental as the prescription in my glasses. There's a bunch of us that wear glasses, and what makes mine a little bit different from yours is custom. It can be that simple. It's not up in the stratosphere. It's, singer, songwriter, working musician changes. We're lucky to work with enthusiasts with incredible requests and instruments that just, are inspired by another world. But most of it that we do is bread and butter, straightforward comfort requests.
Yeah.
And I want to.
So history-wise, Joe, just real quick, and I'm going to let Danny expand on this a little bit, but because he's been there more than a decade. Longer than I have, but when I started, there was really one guy. The custom shop was one guy, and it's over the past 12 years or so, 12 years plus maybe. It's really changed into it's a whole department. I mean, there's Danny and Scott, and Jimmy, and then there's all the men and women that are in the physical custom shop. Which, if you get a chance to come on a tour, you can see all that. And Danny, you remember the old days 20 years ago when it was much different.
Well, when I first got into the department, I believe there were 6 employees on the floor. It was Dale Eckert, Aaron Van Wy, Jen Dieter, Todd Garrity, and Chris Eckert. That's 5.
That's it.
So there were 5 people. So when I first got in, that was 15 years ago in the custom shop. So it has grown. But to your point, the custom shop was Bob Fair, and Bob Fair handled everything, and it grew and it's changed and it's constantly moving. It's changed drastically since I got in the department, but it's the way we buy guitars now is different. I'm still from the old school. I have to put my hands on something. I can't buy an instrument out of the blue. I struggle with that. But that's what makes the custom shop so unique, is that you can go find a neck that you like and a body size, and you can say, hey, Joe, I really like this neck on this guitar. How can we get this neck on this body? And, you're being the dealer that you are, you're intelligent enough to make that happen for the customer, which is huge. That makes a big, big difference.
Yeah, we're excited because right now, as I said, I'm in our Martin showroom with actually Brendan. That's how I met Brendan, was he helped us facilitate this design in our, it's like nice. In a room that reminded us of the second factory, it's
the old factory.
The first one met a warm death, but the second one, and what's really amazing about what we're doing right now, we have a big renovation going on here at the shop, and we're going to put a design center in 2021 right here. So when you come in, you're going to be able to look at different inlays and touch different necks and feels, and we're going to help you design the exact guitar that you want. So we'll be experts with it, which is cool. It's something. Then there's 2 guys in here that are big Martin customer of ours, Dave and Howard, and they have appointed two questions which are great that will lead me right into our next topic. Dave asked, is wood selection embracing a top priority in Martin Custom Shop? And Howard asked, does the wood used in the custom shop a different grade than the Martin's regular line? And something that we really, really want to touch on here is what makes custom shop different than the standard production. Because obviously, if you buy a D18 or a D28 or a Modern Deluxe, they're beautiful guitars. But there is a difference, and a substantial one, in custom shop. So can you touch on what the main separating points are? Are there different parts of the factory? Is the wood sorted differently? You get different. What are the upgrades that occur that make it special because it's a custom shop?
Well, I'll say that I'm pro custom shop. Okay. So one thing that you do get, and Scott can elaborate on this too, is you can get a high glue construction, as opposed to in a standard production line guitar, you're not going to get something like that. Again, you're going to get a little bit of depending on what you get and who you purchase it from, there may be a choice of wood selection that we have done, or there may be a wood selection that maybe Joe, you have done. So all of that stuff adds to the story and adds to the special of what that guitar really is and its living self. So I think that's real important that, we take that extra. I mean, I'll look through 50 backs to find the 3 that I like. Not that the other 47 are bad. This is all great material. It's just the 3 that say, I think I want to be a 00012 fret. Okay. And you find 3 of them and you go, that's what this set of wood wants to be or would look great as. The material sometimes in different body sizes gives itself a different face or different appearance. So I think that also plays into the design or the special treatment or the special effort that gets put into in the custom shop. That wood selection and the bracing, though, that's a good question. Where things apply, we can definitely change braces, and everyone will have a little bit of a twist. You're never going to get 50%. It might give you 3 or 5%, but you'll hear that in comparison. So that was a really good question, actually.
I'm sorry. I was going to say we have a unique opportunity to interact with an expert dealer like you, Joe. If you have a client that has specific needs, or if there's a particular tone in mind that they're gearing themselves towards. It was an excellent question about the quality of material that goes into it. On any given day, our standard production specifies a range of wood quality, like a grade between X and X and Z, and that fits the standard production mode. We also subscribe to appropriate grade levels in custom shop. However, we are pulling into our builds the best examples available on the given day within that grade range. It's like we're not jumping up to master grade woods on every custom that comes through, but where a range is available for the instrument, it's our draw from that material that the customs use the better examples that are accessible to us. So it is our goal to put a better face forward, if you will. Now, will someone hear the difference between the two potential materials? Probably not, because we're most often talking cosmetics and aesthetics at that point. Good question. We want the custom shop client that you work with to get the best possible where the range permits it. Contrast that with the opportunity that the clients have when they work with you, Joe, to specify premium grade, where a standard instrument would never receive that. They can call up those premium grade woods with you, and that's what makes it into their hands. Tone wise, Danny mentioned some things that we're able to do that can more uniquely dial in the sound of that instrument. Every bracing pattern that we use is optimized to the body, but within that we have the opportunity to jockey the placement of the braces in some occasions, or we can alter the width and therefore the stiffness of the braces that go into it. So we can dial something more towards the mids and treble, or we can dial something more towards the bass potential. So it's really cool to be able to play around with the tone control when we're working with you on a custom.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
Danny,
exactly.
Danny and his stunning humbleness. This is where custom. This is what I love about custom shop, because you take someone with Danny's expertise, or the crafts person that's going to be working on the guitar. And I've seen this happen. You grab a guitar, you grab it and flex the back. You go, "Ooh, this screams triple O. This screams."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's a premium wood. If you invest in a standard series Martin guitar, you're getting a great wood. Their wood selection is great, and their wood curing process is spectacular. And that's something that, I think the brand takes a lot of pride in preparing their guitars to make them great for long, long periods of time.
And there's an element of selfishness involved too, Joe, because I've heard Danny say, there is no way I'm going to let you use this piece of wood on this smaller size guitar. Look at all the action that's going out here on the edges. It must be a larger guitar. You can't use it on a single O. This has got to be a triple O or bigger, because this is where the romance is. So we want to make sure that we give the instrument not only the best possible look, but the best possible sound. So there's a lot of decision that goes into the wood selection for a number of reasons.
And this leads to David's question down here, because David just ordered a triple O 12 fret all mahogany that you guys just sent us. And he wanted to know, what makes it custom beyond the torch inlay. But I think you guys handled some of that, because obviously, it's the wood selection was made specifically for that guitar. So when you designed that instrument, it was sorted, and then bracing was meticulously done to make that specific guitar sound good. Where I'm sure a D18 stock model has a standard tolerance, right? Like you have a certain brace thickness that applies to all of them, and that's what makes guitar snowflakes. They all have a little bit difference, right? If you play anything, they're all going to have a little bit of nuance difference. Like you want consistency, but that's just life. But what makes a custom model is when someone was bracing that, and if you go to the factory and you watch the people do the bracing, that is where my head almost fell off at the factory, because that is a skill that is genuinely spectacular to watch in person, because it is inherent to the person touching the instrument. It's just like a really amazing skill. And the women that I saw doing that were obviously not there on the job for an hour. You know what I mean? They're
No.
many years, and they're
pros
helping with the soul of the instrument. So I hope that answers David's question. But there was a question up there, and I don't know if you guys can answer specifically on every guitar, but it says on a standard production model, if we take a stock standard series guitar versus a custom shop model, are there more or less people that work on them? Or are there different people that work on them?
They're different people.
Great question.
Yeah, there are. Yeah.
But because we're limited by the building, we have to share some processes. We have to share some sanding. We have to share some finishing, some filling. However, when it comes to the skeletal elements of the instrument, the building of it, the bones and the flesh and meat, not all of our coworkers touch the custom instruments. There's the select group. We've got some identified areas of the factory that are only custom, but because we have to be able to flex up and flex back and utilize the capacity that's available to us, there are only select coworkers that get to work on the custom instruments. It's like you go to the Mercedes factory, and overall it's Mercedes, and there's spectacular vehicles being built throughout the plant. But over here is where the AMG engines get assembled. So we share the roof, we share a couple of the processes, finishing, polishing, sanding, filling, but building the stuff, there's a select group that get to touch the custom products.
Yeah. It's a true custom process. That's the big key here. You're not swapping a widget in for a widget out. We're not just taking a part and turning out. Now, I've had customers that want to do, a customer that wanted to do a D28, and he just wanted the rounded headstock. That's all he wanted. You know what I mean? So it's like if there's a cosmetic thing that you find, you want to be inspired by your instrument. That's what we're all, like 99.9% of us are never going to make $1 playing our instruments. We do it to make ourselves feel good, and it's because it's something we love. So when you touch your instrument, time should pass in a way that, like, when you're done, you're like, man, I can't believe that was this long. You know what I mean? It's just like, so you can make modest changes. So if there's an artist that you saw that inspires you and that's what you love to play, you can make modest changes, but you can also design something that is specifically yours, that is dreamy. And that's what brings me to my next topic, which is the dreaded, can Martin Custom Shop do anything? They'll make anything I want? And I always laugh when I get this question because like anything is just a bold word. Like,
well,
I've seen Martin
I can tell you that
amazing things, but I think anything, like what are some capabilities and what are some things that Martin Custom Shop just doesn't do? Maybe weird body shapes, or like what are something that, you know, it's just like that is like that's kind of off the table because that doesn't represent what Martin believes in or Martin does as a brand. And what are its capabilities in the farthest reaches? What can it do at the most extremes?
Well, do you want me to talk about this, Scott?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. There were a handful of guitars that we built that I thought pushed the envelope. It's from our point of view. Years ago, we did a 14-string guitar, which is, you know, it was, done 7 strings done in in the double course, which I thought was an incredible thing. I was real impressed with that guitar when we were done, just because it was something that, you know, I personally had never thought of. So when it came to us and this is what they wanted, and when we built it, when you heard it, I went, oh my God, yeah, now I get it. And now I understand why he wanted it to be a quote on like a 12-string, but with 2 more additional strings on top of it. So that kind of stuff we can do. We've done we've done 2 different double necks. That's something that we normally major in. But we've done some in our R&D department, and also Timmy Teal has done one under his construction that was in the museum. A beautiful guitar he built. So there are certain things that we can do. I'm not sure how far we want to get to doing another company's guitar, as in like I've had people say, I want you to basically build me this company's guitar, but I want you to put your name on it. And there's, and you try and be polite and just explain, no, I'm sorry, we can't do that. We don't want to do that. And I'm sure that the company that we would be doing that to wouldn't appreciate that. You know what I mean?
Well,
so there's some respect that you have for your
respective of other designs, and we have to build to the extent that our tooling and manufacturing capability exists. We use body forms, so we have requests occasionally where someone might say, I would like to take a particular body size, and can you make it 15% larger? Or I don't want to build this one that you have in the standard lineup. I'd like to go smaller by 18 or 20%. So it's those that weird, in between. It would be a true hybrid, and we don't have the tooling to be able to manufacture that. So there are some mechanical limitations. We used to build mandolins for crying out loud, and they all said Martin on the headstock. We don't build mandolins or banjos anymore, but for the most part, we can do unique neck shapes. That's a very popular request from artists. If there's a neck that they are familiar with, because let's face it, everything that was hand carved generations ago, there was subtle variation between them. So it's not uncommon for us to have an artist or a client who is very specific and passionate about what they want, and we can work with them on providing templates for a neck profile or barrel shape that'll be hand carved for them. So, where we're limited by the tooling and the fixtures, we have to comply with that. Where we have some freedom to run a little bit and do the hand carved work, we're always excited to oblige that. But I mean, dang, with all of the variety that exists within Martin, every week we still have something new, a new combination of materials and dimensions that in 200 years we haven't done before. And we put the engineers through the ringer to come up with a program that will allow us to cut it on the CNC.
Now, go ahead, Brendan. You got?
Oh, I was just gonna. There's a little sidetrack, but there's a couple of really good questions out there. One, somebody was asking if Empire is only a custom shop dealer or if you carry the full line. Joe and everybody at Empire they carry it all. So everything from a backpacker all the way through the custom series. So any guitars available, any Martin guitars available at Empire Music. And the other one, and I'll let either Danny or Scott speak to this. Can the custom shop do an SE13? That's maybe on the horizon, but the SE13 came out last January. It's still in the process of shipping. And speaking of guitars that Empire has, Empire is getting a good selection of SE13s every month. So if you're interested in one of those, you can contact Joe. But Scott, what can you say about future of SE13 in the custom shop?
We have a gentleman's agreement with Standard Production and Product Design, so that we give them at the very least they get 12 months to run with it and get something established before we come in and start doing the crazy work to it. No sooner had the SC13 been announced to the public than we started receiving requests to do any number of customizations to it. We allow the product to stand on its own 2 feet and get the introduction under our belt before we come back and start requesting ability to design different neck profile, or to be able to alter the nut 12th and bridge spacing on stuff like that. So I think it's going to be coming. How soon, I can't say. We just wait for the product manager to say, okay, it's on its own 2 feet, it's established. Our dealers have received the product, and we'll now make it available for customization. There was another question that was a very good question I see from one of the guests, Terry Harris, regarding some previous production runs with unique appointments. There are certain elements, and he mentions that unique rosette that was on one of the John Mayer models, where the rosette on the Stagecoach, I believe it was, where the rosette laps across the tongue of the fingerboard down there. Correct. Stellar design. We will occasionally call hands off on some uniquely distinct features like that. And we're staying hands off on that Stagecoach rosette. We're able to manage it on the production instruments that came through. What was challenging on the production model John Mayer's was the necks go through a 2 fitting process. There's a pre-fit and the post-fit when production's going on, and for that neck to somehow alter in the pocket as it might be required to, we actually ran into issues where some necks had to be scrapped and redone because it altered the concentricity of the rosette that was trying to lapse across the fingerboard. It looked like it didn't line up. So there are some unique things that we put hands off because they're immediately identifiable to the real McCoy. That's a good question, though.
Yeah, you'll see the custom shop has amazing capabilities, and you will see the standard production features that people want eventually there, for sure. So it's just like, about that, you can always just come to our website, reach us, and we can reach out to the guys here, and we'll find out what's doable, when it's doable, kind of the time frame, all that good stuff. And regarding inventory, Martin, just an aside, it's not custom shop only, but COVID happened, and Martin was like the first to get shut down and the last to reopen. So they've been really grinding hard to get back up and running. So like it's like standard production, everything's been tricky. We're lucky they hooked us up with a dozen custom shops that we just got in, and we're gonna be doing video work on that. I'm gonna have more about those guitars in a little bit, but support these guys because they didn't fold up. They've been working really hard. We're working mostly remotely. You can't go into the factory and things like that. They're still being able to get us some guitars and stuff. So our goal for next year is to stock 100 Martins at all time and have a great mix of massive order custom shop and standard stuff. And our showroom will support that for sure. So speaking of more guitars, because we're gonna get into a topic that I love, and it's the types of woods that are available and wood sourcing and all that good stuff. But so as part of this custom expert program, I've been working with Brendan, and we just talked about woods that I'd like to do some customs with, right? And I got 25 hand-selected backs and sides that we're going to build guitars with. And I'm going to sit down with the guys in the custom shop and spec them out. And we're actually going to do like a documentary on this process. It's going to be hopefully a 25, 30-minute long-form thing that's going to go with all of my interactions with the folks at the custom shop, from the initial emails with the wood coming in, us working on speccing them out, follow up, hopefully get as much information as we can with COVID as the guitars come through. And then COVID, cross our fingers with COVID, next year, we'd love to go to the factory and pick them up and do like kind of a cool kickoff of these. So,
wow, yeah.
Geek, because I think what's really awesome about the custom program is sometimes we have a rosewood guitar that we love and a mahogany guitar that we love, and we want something new and inspiring. And you know, it's just like maybe we just have found a body shape that fits us. Where like I like OM body shapes. That's like just what I like. You know what I mean? It's just like, so to me, you know, it's like I have a D18 and that's my dreadnought guitar. But when I'm playing most of the time, I want a little bit smaller body. So after you buy a couple of the main tone woods, okay, you're kind of, you've got your flavors, right? The custom shop gives us the ability to expand the colors in the crayon box, right? We have now, we're not trapped with the standard most famous tone woods. We can explore more exotic tone woods. Let's talk about what type of woods are available. And I want to talk about Brazilian rosewood because you guys are definitely known for that, right? You know what I mean? It's just like the grail wood. But I love doing stuff in Cocobolo. We have Zira Cody here. We have a lot of beautiful American woods that are just really, really special. Can you talk about the types of woods that you select for the custom shop that are exotic, and how we source them and how tricky that is to do it ethically? Because obviously that's something that Martin is a big, they do a certified, wood program where they're choosing woods that are sustainable. So they have a positive impact on the environment while still making the instruments that we love, right? So it's just like there's always a balance there. Let's talk about the types of woods we can get from the custom shop and maybe wrap it up with the Brazilian because we keep make it a cliffhanger.
That's a cliffhanger.
Conversation about Brazilian rosewood.
Kick it off by just saying, piggybacking on what Joe said about having to be sensitive about where these things come from, and then Daniel and Scott will get more into the specific woods. But that's a good point, Joe. It's very difficult to source any type of wood effectively, and there's always some wood out there, maybe from somebody else that is on a lesser priced guitar and it looks really good, and people say, well, how could you do that? We need to be really careful. We want to be really careful. We want to be sensitive and aware of where all these things are coming from, and part of that process is constantly looking for new stuff. There's a couple of people in the factory who travel around the world, go out into the rainforest and come back with all sorts of bug bites because they're checking out the wood. But it's more than just the piece of wood. And is this viable and is it beautiful? It gets into, where does it come from and was it sourced ethically? And there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes behind that. Now, with that said, we often go back and everybody on the call here knows about mahogany and rosewood, right? We've been talking about that for 150, 200 years, even longer. As those things become less and less plentiful, there's this great search for other woods, and there's really good stuff out there that you just mentioned, Joe, and they just don't necessarily have the top of mind advertising that some other wood. So rosewood is very general, but mahogany is a great one, and there's other great woods out there. There's sapele and pomelo and all that good stuff. So Danny and Scott, what do you guys have?
Well, I want to just real quick here.
Yeah.
Dave mentioned that he talked to a luthier, and Cocobolo is just a cosmetic upgrade over rosewood, but it's not better sonically. If you come to Empire Music, I will not tell you what sounds best. That is not my job. My job isn't to tell you the best flavor, right? It's just like if Empire Music stocked all of Joe's favorite guitars, Joe would have Joe's collection here, and that's all you would buy from. It's purely subjective. Our goal is to meet your needs, what you like the sound of. The reason that all these body shapes exist and tone woods exist is because there's not a right answer. You can't look and say this. Like arguing. I always tell people it's like arguing over colors. Like red is better, blue is better, and then we fight. It's just dumb. You know what I mean? It's like what we want to do is make sure you're getting the highest quality version of those woods, and that's what we're really.
But red is better.
Yeah, see, there you go. Needless to say, I'll be meeting Saster in the boys' room after this, and we're gonna have fun.
I can tell you this: for me, I was fed, coming through the Martin factory, rosewood. It's got to be rosewood. If it's not rosewood, it's not a guitar. Okay. Um, Mahogany. That back now, think about this. When I started in '87, okay, we had like 12 different models we made. That was it. Okay. So everybody preached rosewood, rosewood. One day I picked up a D18 and I played it. I was really young in the factory. I wasn't aware of all these different things and went, wow, what is this? This is really good too. And everybody said, yeah, well, that's the inexpensive guitar. That's the mahogany compared to the rosewood. They're a different voice. So, I mean, I grew up, had to be rosewood, had to be big, had to be a dreadnought, had to be big, it had to be rosewood. I've graduated after all these years now. My favorite guitars I play now are out of mahogany and maple, and they're smaller. So I'm like you, Joe. I've kind of gone more towards that smaller body size. So there's a whole run, and they all have a different voice, and I think that's what makes them all special. The materials that make them up, and the body sizes, obviously the combined. But the Cocobolo, like you said, no, it is a rosewood, yeah. Do I think it looks better than rosewood? You bet I do. Okay. Would I love to have a Cocobolo guitar? You bet I would. It's just one of those things. It's all personal preference, though. What my ear hears now, at the age I'm at, and what it heard 20 years ago is different. So these guitars and these materials, to me, they have a greater impact as I become older, because I've heard more guitars, and you kind of understand what these materials, what they are, and you learn to appreciate them. The trees aren't growing any faster, so we want to be able to use them responsibly. And I agree with you. It is not your idea to tell somebody what sounds good. It's up to me to decide what feels right and what speaks to me as a player. I think that's a good way that you approach things, Joe.
Yeah, I think it's always dangerous when we nothing. People are like, "What's your favorite?" Well, I'm like, I'm not buying a guitar today. It's just like my favorite, one that meets your needs, right? And the beauty, if a manufacturer does a fantastic job of presenting us options, they build us high quality guitars with different features and tone woods that allow us to find the sound that we want. And it's funny because there are many people that the reason you want to come to Empire Music is we have a wider variety of more options, right? And not that the other places, there's a lot of great independent stores. Go to your independent shops. Let's do that, because these people typically know their inventory better, and I think that we do too. And if you go in, I think you'd be surprised how many people come in for a D28 and leave with something else. They think, man, I never knew, because I'm a focus definition geek. I want to hear all my notes. You know what I mean? So a big dreadnought with rosewood doesn't tend to be as much my cup of tea. You know what I mean? I just want smaller tone woods, whatever it would be. But I think a lot of times we go onto YouTube, and I'm glad that y'all are watching this. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. We'd appreciate it. But, it's like, there are great places for information, but nothing replaces your hands, eyes, and ears. You know what I mean? And it's just like, so you come into our shop, or you talk to us if you're an internet customer, which is most of you are, and you say, hey, listen, I really liked your video on this guitar, but I just need a bigger neck. Well, now we can get to work. You know what I mean? Because you're designing what you wanted. We might have a custom in stock like that. I think Steven here asked that, hey, do you have any triple O or OMs that have, a center wedge that's different? It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. We can work with you, and we can put together, we can do gorgeous for days. Martin's wood is nutty. But I think that the big key here is the custom shop allows us to have all the tools to make sure we get exactly what we want. We're not going to have to take 80% of what we hope for or 90% of what we hope for. And I think if you take your time and you work with us, we can make it so that you get more than what you wanted. And I think that's always key, because I always feel like, if you're spending $3,000 or $4,000 and settling, you didn't do it right. You know what I mean? It's just because there is the right answer out for you. And the three guys in this experience with me here today are the ones that can make it right for you. You know what I mean? It's just, it might take 6 months to get for it. By the way, what's your standard lead time on a custom shop guitar? We'll talk about that for a sec.
Right now we're in the 6 months range. There are certain construction factors that might push it out a little bit further. Hide glue takes a little bit longer. There are exponentially fewer people on our team that work with the hide glue product because it is a particular assembly mentality. All the parts have to be preheated before they go together. So hide glue and inordinate amount of pearl can drive the construction time higher. Straight ahead stuff though is closer to 6 months, sometimes even sooner. Hey, quick shout out to my brother. I saw he logged on. Hey, Stuart, love you, brother. That's kind of cool. I don't get to talk to my brother that often. One of the guests mentioned they were surprised. They were surprised by how heavy Cocobolo was. David McLean says, and he's got a good point. It's in the rosewood family, but one rosewood is not best. There's the perception out there, but we had to learn on our own how to work with Cocobolo. Yeah, it's ridiculously heavy. We were breaking a lot of sides because we had not learned for ourselves how that wood wants to be managed. So we had to school ourselves to sand the Cocobolo to a thinner dimension so that it would accept the bending process better and not break apart. And then
Joe,
we had to learn
the same way.
Yeah, and then we had to learn the hard lessons about the finishing process because the inherent oils that are in the Cocobolo were creating bleeding through the finish process. So we had to develop a new finish practice that, so far as we know, was unique in the industry. So we spent so much time studying and looking for the woods. And back to one of the earlier questions, there's a lot of exotic, to use the air quotes, there's a lot of exotic material out there being sold by a lot of different vendors, and we tend to purchase through our long established relationships. There's a lot of risk involved in the global wood market, and it's in our best interest from a conservation standpoint that we buy from our longstanding relationships who have proven and exhibited ethical harvesting practices, ethical custodianship of the chain of custody. That the acquisition has to be locked down tight and solid, because if we were to purchase one particular wood species and it had a shady history, it doesn't just jeopardize that one stick of wood or that one shipment. It calls under scrutiny everything that we have in the facility, and that could be crippling. So it is of utmost importance that we support our established vendor network, because they have exhibited with the boots on the ground the quality of not only the material, but the sourcing and the harvesting and everything that comes into contact with it there. So I think that was a great question from earlier. I wanted to touch that.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's not like any competitors ever got popped for anything like that.
Joe,
that could ruin your day.
Joe, there have been previous custom guitars that you've designed that you've used different materials. You've used the Gonco Alves, you've used the Cocobolo. So, I mean, you can say, and I'm going to say it myself. Don't be afraid of the different woods. All the woods sound great. They're all just different.
They're different.
Okay, they're not good. They're not bad. They're just different. So sometimes it's more or less listening for what that voice is and being able to appreciate that voice, of whether it sounds like rosewood, whether it sounds like mahogany. The Gonco Alves, we were floored by, because we thought it was going to sound like mahogany, and we strung it up and it sounded like rosewood. So we were all, I was tickled to death, because I thought we learned something, and I remember you getting those guitars in your store. I was there the one time.
Yeah.
And they were beautiful guitars. They really were.
I toured the museum, and there's so much inspiration in the museum, because that's where you learn that Martin just doesn't make rosewood and rosewood and mahogany guitars, because where the Gonzalo Alves guitars came from, because you guys thought you were making Koa instruments at the time until you got
They weren't, yeah,
and they weren't. And it's just it goes to show you that it's like there's it's not like Martin has only made two types of guitars. It's like there's a lot of things in the history that shows. And Terry has a great question, because now They're asking, like, what's the best way to get an instrument which is very rare, like sinker mahogany or specific grain style coloration? He said, your wood room holds incredible treasures. And this also leads to my follow-up is, why won't you give me all your Brazilian rosewood?
Well, we can. There's somebody we would need to talk to about that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
treasures is great. Like, how do you get the treasures? There of course are some incredible treasures in the wood room and the museum and all over Martin Guitar. What's the best way to get a hold of one of those pieces of wood? It's a little bit tricky right now with the factory essentially being closed to the public. So unfortunately, right now Joe can't come in and visit the factory. But as a custom expert dealer, if we can help out with that a little bit and try to find you something that there is a good.
We got a new skill in the playbook, and Joe mentioned earlier that he had pre-selected a collection of wood that he's going to be. It's his exclusively. We don't like to use that word, but Joe chose some exclusive sets, and we came up with a method where we can take a request from Joe and get down into the wood room, and it may take the better part of a day to make the quality of wood selection that Joe's asking for, and then we photograph and provide those images to Joe in hopes that we're meeting his need. So yeah, we've got an opportunity to collaborate closely with Joe and our friends at Empire. When that client comes through the door and contacts them with these specific requests, we have a way that we can oblige that. We can't just open the wood room to the world and start shared pictures all over the place. It's a real event when that happens. So Joe's going to make sure that we're talking to the right client about the right piece of wood, and Danny and myself and Jimmy, our other colleague in the department, will work closely with our friends and partners in the wood room to make sure that we pull the right jewel out of that box of treasures.
Yeah.
And I do have 2 sinker mahoganies in stock. So if you want to see what that looks like, I have a head that we just got in a 14 fret dreadnought, and we have a Grand Performer GP model in sinker mahogany. So
that's cool stuff.
Yeah, because
that sounds really good.
Yeah, we're going to shoot some videos next week on these specific guitars, so you'll be able to see them and hear them. And then sometime mid-November, we're going to do a live event where you'll be able to tune in, and myself and Todd are going to sit down. Now, those of you who don't know Todd, who's one of our managers here, is significantly better guitar player than me. I set the goal intentionally to make everyone else look good. But Todd is a really, really great guitar player, and it's great to hear it in his hands. So we'll be able to put on that event and allow you guys to hear the instruments and things like that. But our real goal is, if you're after Thinker Mahogany, we have access to that. You know what I mean? We can work it out. You know what I mean? It's just like we're here to figure that out for you. And down the line, hopefully next year, no one knows at this point of the game, right? When we're able to tour the factory, I'm going to drag my video team out there, and we're going to do live events, hopefully, right from the factory to show you, like, you can get this. Because it's cool, because when Danny came to the shop and did an in-store event, he did a bracing display, which was rad. It was really cool. I mean, he was, like, killing his bracing. It was, like, slicing it up. It was really amazing. He also brought wood that you could pick. So when we had these in-store events, there are wood that he hand selects at the factory. You go, man, I'd love the design, and he's here to do it for you. So we're going to try to give you that experience on a day-to-day basis here.
Cool.
It's like there's going to be a lot of things on our website that we hope to integrate to make that process really seamless for you, so we can get it kicking and really give you the type of attention that you all want. Which leads me to the Custom Shop Expert Program, right? Which we're part of. It's a new thing for Martin, because it's like this focus on custom shop. It's something I've talked to these guys. I've been selling Martin guitars since I was 16, 17 years old. I had just a touch more hair. This hair was up here. But, something that we're really passionate about here is custom instruments, because they represent truly the best a brand can offer, like pinnacle instruments, pinnacle build quality, and the connection to the brand. Your experience is just elevated because you get to interact with the people at the factory, and they're going to hand sand that back and sides down 5/1000 of an inch to extra to give you that extra bit. And it really is it's so much fun to do on our end too, which is really cool. So now we have this expert program. This is going to allow us to have extra access to the guys at the factory, give you an awesome ability to get cool woods and make sure we get you dialed in. and do a really good job for you. And they're going to have some special releases next year for us, all sorts of cool stuff. So we'll talk about that. And you're going to see, we're working with market, the new website we just released, empiremusic.com, is up. Now we're working with Martin's marketing team. You're going to see over the next week or two, new copy, the custom expert badge applied, and all these things that you're going to see. So reach us and trust us. And if there's anything you see on our site, you can always reach out to us. We'll make a quick video for you, a sound clip for you. We Zoom with customers all the time. This is like my new thing. It's just like every customer is, trying to get the experience and see it. We can hook it up to make sure you get a great experience. For most of our customers are online. We're doing 85-90% of our business, online. And next year we're gonna have another 3,500 square feet dedicated just to video and photography, and giving you guys a killer, experience, bringing you close to our house, which is exciting. So, go ahead.
Yeah, Joe. Let me kick off that introduction to the Custom Shop Expert program by saying thank you for being a part of this program. You entitled this series "Ask the Expert." And I want to turn that around and say that, for all of your customers, part of the reason, only one small part of the reason, because there are many, but part of the reason that you're a part of this program is because you are an expert, and your customers are going to gain a lot by having access to you as well. So we appreciate your partnership on this. It's really valuable, and your customers are asking great questions, and you have a lot of insight that can help them start the process. And that's what this thing is all about, because ultimately we want the Custom Shop Expert program is designed to be very customer centric. We want people to have a good experience, because custom shop can be, as we've talked about earlier on, it can be a little daunting, or I don't know what to do, or I don't know how to do, or how do we get started? And part of what we want to do is connect you with somebody like Joe Vita and everybody at Empire, because they can really help you start that process.
Well, there's definitely, I appreciate that very much. It's like, there's definitely something to playing many guitars like we get to do here, and knowing how to supercharge an instrument. There are so many things that you can do with bracing and, Martin's VTS process that we like to use, and Adirondack bracing, things that aren't sexy on a spec sheet. Maybe you don't think about your bracing as much or whatever, you want the beautiful wood, but when you hear it and you hear something, and it's funny because we'll get guitars in and we'll play them and you go, man, that one is whoa. And then you touch another one, man, and then you look and they've got these specs that are deep inside them, the bracing types, things like that are consistent, that just really make the instrument more lively. Or, it's like we've known that it's when someone thinks like, hey, I really want this type of sound and this is the wood I want. I'm like, whoa, that's no bueno. Like, that's not going to give you the experience that you want. You need to think this way. And what we want to do is we're just going to work tirelessly to get it right for you. If anyone that is watching this has ever worked with us on a custom build through you guys, or, we do a lot of Fender custom shop builds in the electric side, we are just meticulous in going through to make sure that we're nailing this out. And Brendan just worked with one of our customers, Bill, who did an amazing custom that took, he had aluminum inlay down on his fretboard. That guitar was awesome. It was really, really cool. And it took a long time. That's a really, really hard inlay to do. And it just, then he had a couple guitars that were vintage of his being worked on at the factory, and Brendan met at the factory. This is like these guys are super hands-on because they want to get it right for you too. If you're willing to take the time to sit down and design an instrument that's going to be a generational guitar, I think that's what we're talking about. It's something that you'll be able to put the hand of the next person in your family when you want to think about leaving something behind or having something that's going to live beyond you. These are the instruments, and we know how to take care of them now. I always feel like, what made the older guitars so rare is people didn't take care of them. They didn't, it's like really think about humidity and how we give you a year's worth of service here at Empire. You buy a guitar from us, you can bring it in here anytime for a year. We'll set it up, restring it to give you the full shebang on the house, because we want it to be tip top all the time. We want to help you monitor it. So, it's like we really have been working hard with Martin for, like Kit and John. John is from Pittsburgh. He's one of my good buddies from out here. Is the legal counsel with Martin. We have a really great connection with like guys like Skip at the factory and Fred and Jim. It's like we're lucky to know these people and have their cell phone numbers and be able to shoot them a text like, hey, we have a customer that's working on this. Is this, crazy, or is this exactly like the right type of crazy? And like, of course, you know what I mean? We're not just filling out a spec sheet telling how much it is and worried about like getting your money first. You know what I mean? We want to make sure that you're designing the right recipe. And then when you get it, the most fun thing you can do is open up a custom shop guitar for somebody the first time they get to touch it, because we've only got to deliver a couple this year because of COVID and everything. We haven't had tons of them come.
Hard to get.
But it's like when people get them, they're always just like, at the time you're like, you're going through the process and the anxiety and the excitement of getting the instrument. And then when it shows up, man, to see people get super pumped and think they can't imagine getting something better. Like that's when we know we knocked it out of the park. So, we work really hard to do that. Now, we know that Martin does that. This is one of my favorite parts of the Ask the Experts is like, what are some cool stories of guitars you guys have worked on? And we have like a few minutes left here that are just like for artists or you did that you thought were going to be like too wild, like, that 7-string, 14-string sounds like it was bound to be a hot mess and turned out awesome. It's just like, it's like, what's cool is like these guys here are touching the instruments that really the world's most famous musicians are playing and they're writing records with and recording music today with and all that stuff. So it's like, they really have a unique perspective as to like what people are asking for. Like what's a cool, like who's someone you worked with or a guitar that you did that was just like above and beyond that you're just like really pumped about that maybe you didn't expect?
I had a chance this past year to build an instrument for an established artist who shall remain nameless. And he walked in and told Fred Green he wants a guitar like the third one on the left in the museum. Well, that was one that CF built. Okay. And he had just enough chutzpah, we'll call it, that Fred said, okay, yeah, let's do that, So I actually had a chance to pull down one of C.F. Martin's original guitars, put my head inside it, and actually truly admire the genius. Okay, that was one thing that I realized that at that point in time, the things that he did, he was so intelligent. How he did it, how they built it, how that guitar came across. And when you strung it up, still to this day, it sounded really good. Okay, so we're talking a guitar that's, it's almost 200 years old, It's exaggerating, but you understand, a very, very old instrument. So for me, that was a privilege. And it was an honor to be able to do that. So I'll always hold on to that memory of working on a guitar that was actually made by our founder, or maybe analyzing a guitar that was made by our founder and trying to duplicate it. I did my best, but I still think his was a little bit better in the end.
We did a custom for a client who's a friend of the custom shop, has a fantastic collection of instruments. He was traveling on the East Coast and he brought with him his daily player. And when we say it's a daily player, we were amazed that he pulled out of the case an instrument from the early teens. And this is his gigging guitar. And it was a phenomenal instrument. And it was so cool. He had a chance to visit the factory when we were receiving guests. But it was such a special instrument. And his was one of like 3 believed to exist. And we put the calipers on that instrument right there in the office and spec'd out a tribute to Lenny's guitar. And we built it, took it to the NAMM show and put it on display. And it just knocked people dead cold on the NAMM show floor. Because they were first attracted to the instrument because it was such an elegant instrument. But when they got to hear the story about, here's a guy that owned the original, and it was such a special, piece of our history that we just couldn't wait to replicate that and give somebody else in the world an opportunity to lay their hands on something like that. That was among the most special things that we've done. We've worked with a lot of artists and weird requests. I personally enjoyed being able to do the serial number 2 million guitar, which was the timepiece, the Watchworks guitar that became the D200. I'm a watch nerd, so that was gratifying on a personal level. But it was that one guitar that we did for Lenny that just absolutely knocked everybody dead, as it should have. It wasn't the world's most expensive guitar. It wasn't made out of Brazilian rosewood. It just had that right connection to the past. And, we offered it to Lenny first if he wanted it, because I told him we were going to build it anyway, and we'd give him the right of first refusal on it. and he came to the NAMM show. And he didn't have the resources to buy another guitar right then and there, but he got to meet the new owner of that guitar, and they got to meet the guy that inspired it. And there is no other business that I've been close to that's been able to make a connection like that. So it's really, really special on so many levels.
It's awesome. My favorite build, and let me preface this by saying I'm not a builder, although I have studied a little bit under Danny many years ago in a previous life. So I would defer most of my interest in previous guitars to Danny Brown builds. He's done a lot of fun ones. But the one that I probably had the most effort put into and collaboration was done about 2 or 3 years ago. In a previous position with a young girl. She was only 15 years old, and she was given the opportunity by her father to spec out a guitar that ended up being dubbed the Lion. It's on our website somewhere under the custom shop page. But it was really interesting, one, because he had grown up and had received a very cool gift from his father, and he wanted to pass on that tradition as she turned 16, and her desire was to build a guitar. And it's an incredible koa instrument with a lion coming out of the sound hole, done in pearl, and it was just phenomenal. And she really had a lot of she ended up going to school for design, I believe, in New York. And so she came to the table with a lot, and just being able to help her facilitate her vision for her 16th birthday was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's like the most. I think the best way for me to think about this is just what you've talked about. You're taking these historical pieces, which makes, it's like Martin's an iconic American company. There's not many like it in the world. You know what I mean? It's just like that have been family owned for this enormous period of time, and have done, I mean, when Dick Boak worked with you guys, he took me into these vaults with all these books and every transaction, mandolin repairs in 1888. It was like, it blew my mind, like handwritten craziness. And the amazing part of that, because it hasn't been bought and sold and traded and all these things, is that you can take all of these years of how great grandma made the sauce and how grandma made the sauce and like how everybody's, continued to pass this tradition down, and the desire to hit a certain benchmark, their gold standard for the brand. And they can always have this beautiful museum where they can look back and say, how did we do this? What was the goal? And then how do we make it even better today? It's like our tolerances are tighter, our expectations are better, our wood curing is better. It's like Martin's put amazing, this is another misnomer. It's like Martin definitely can look like Geppetto's shop, but there is a lot of technology there too. They're modernized their factory to make sure the materials are most ready for us. It's like taking all the important stuff that is really inherent to the instrument done by hand. It's still done by hand, but there are things that machines do better. Like, the way that you guys cure woods now and how it's like, that blew my mind. And that is definitely, tell you what, nobody thinks about when they're buying a guitar is how the manufacturer takes care of their wood before it becomes, a guitar. You don't think about that. And I'll tell you what, I'm sure Chris Martin thought about it when he wrote the check for that equipment, because I'm sure it hurt. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's like nobody gets on the front page of the Times with their new wood curing technology. You know what I mean? It's just like, it doesn't get you anything but just a better product. You know what I mean? It's just like,
well, the technology has an important place, despite all of the ancient vibe that's going on with the Martin instrument. I mean, trust me, a keyhole saw is no match for a laser. The laser gets it right. What the laser doesn't allow for is some of that weird creep that occurs. And thankfully, we've got the museum. We learn these neat little lessons all the time. Danny Brown, the rear shifted braces was one. Dan Tominski, we worked with Dan on that museum edition that had rearward shifted bracing. When the world and the experts said, and a Martin instrument of this era, of this manufacturer would have been forward shifted, and you break out the iron filings and the magnets and stuff just don't line up. Those braces were moved back, and lo and behold, what a monster sounding guitar that was. And consequently, we learned a lesson that that was just lost for generations. And now it's one of the favorite tricks in the custom shop book to move those braces back tighten up that whole thing, and you don't lose any volume, you don't lose any response. But man, you get focus out of a dreadnought like you've never experienced before. It's that kind of weird little history that reveals itself. Every now and then we get a chance to pull one of those threads and we learn something new, and man, it goes to town in the custom shop.
You know, like I said, when I got a chance to look inside the guitar that Mr. Martin built, I was floored. I like to think of what we do today as being something special, and it is. Yeah. But that guy did it all. He did it all from the start. So I was so impressed by it, and it's because we have that museum as a resource.
Yeah. So I'm going to wrap it up because we're a little over an hour. I want to thank Danny Brown, Brendan Hackett, and Scott Sasser from Martin Custom Shop. This has been awesome. So what I want you to do when you think about getting your next acoustic guitar, I want you to think about Martin guitars, and I want you to think about the tones that they provided historically. Think about the records that inspired you to want to play the guitar and how they were played on Martin guitars. You know what I mean? It's like they're there. And modern music today, I mean, they've done an amazing job of transitioning and offering us all different types of music. When you think of Custom Shop, I want you to think of Empire Music and EmpireMusic.com. We're here to make sure your experience is amazing. We will make sure we knock it out of the park with getting you the right features, the right woods. And if you're interested in a basic Martin guitar through Custom Shop, myself, like, you can reach us right at the shop, 412-343-5299. You can just text me like my wife does, 412-915-7118 anytime. Thanks to Paul. He's Paul Cranston. He drives down from Michigan all the time and comes and hangs out with us. You know, It's been awesome seeing all of our regular customers in here. And, you know, 2020 has been a tough year, and Martin's really took it on the chin this year with COVID and everything. 2021 is going to be massive for us. We have such big plans that we've laid, and we're here to make sure that we give you the best experience in the country. And these guys are going to be right there with me, making sure we get you what you need. So Martin Guitars, you can go right to martinguitars.com. They have a custom shop configurator. That's another thing that's really cool. Go to the
That's right.
On Martin Custom Shop. Not all the features are there, but if you want to play around with some cool ideas, like if you ever gone to like a car thing and designed, you know, like the features that you want and all that stuff, you can go right to martinguitars.com, look for the custom shop configurator, and you'll start to see some really cool things that you can do and like the type of nuance that you can select. When it comes down to doing it right, we'll make sure we get you the bracing, the wood types you need, make sure we're getting the right body shape and making it accurate historically if that's what you want, or if you have a special inlay pattern. These guys can do almost anything. They'll do almost anything. Not everything, but they'll do it all, and they're going to do it world class. I'd like to thank everybody from Martin Guitars, all the you watching in there again, you know, Kit and John and my old rep Dave. And I'd love to really thank Danny, Brendan, and Scott. They put in an amazing amount of time with us recently here, getting us into this custom shop expert program. And it's going to pay off big time for us here. So give us a shout, EmpireMusic.com. Thanks so much for watching. And I'd love for you guys to hang for just 2 seconds afterward.
You got it.